Hey, what is up guys? I'm KBHD here, and this is the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium. So this is one of Sony's trio of new Android smartphones for this year, and it's about what you'd expect from them. So a much improved 23 megapixel camera on the back, a Snapdragon 810 chip, Adreno 430 GPU, and 3 gigabytes of RAM inside, alongside a beefy 3400 mAh battery. And all in a metal body that's IP68 water resistant and flat with its clean, understated design, very Sony. So aside from the unbelievably awkward placement of the volume button, what makes this phone unique? What's so premium about the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium? Well, it's rocking a 5.5-inch 4K IPS display on the front. That rings in at an insane pixel density of 806 pixels per inch. So you gotta know that 4K is another word for UHD resolution, which is 3840 by 2160, which is exactly 4 times 1080p. That's a lot of pixels, and this is the world's first 4K smartphone. Or to be a little bit more precise, the world's first smartphone with a 4K display. So the thing about it, and you might have actually heard about this, is that it really renders pretty much everything at a 4:1 ratio, so 1920 by 1080. If you take a screenshot of the home screen, it'll tell you it's 1920 by 1080. And most apps that read the phone's resolution will tell you it's 1080p because it's rendering everything at that 1080p for regular use. And this saves battery and graphics strain on the GPU. But in certain apps, it does render in full 4K, specifically in apps where you're viewing high-resolution content, like in your gallery when you're looking at super high-res images or watching 4K video. And that's where it really shines. The weird thing is, you can actually see it snap into 4K mode. It takes a few seconds once you open the content, but then once you see it, it snaps on. And when it does, it sort of unlocks a bunch of detail and a bunch of textures and things that appear that you couldn't see before. You can tell more on certain images than others, but this one, for example, boom. It just really pops when it turns on, when it makes that switch. So the golden question here is, can you actually tell the difference in image quality between 4K mode on the Xperia Z5 Premium and another really high-end smartphone display? So to test it out, first we'll go at an arm's length. So this is the Z5 Premium snapped into 4K mode at an arm's length. So go ahead and make sure you're watching in 4K and get a good look. And then this is the Nexus 6P, so a high-end Quad HD AMOLED display, showing the exact same image. Here's another of the Xperia Z5 Premium, pause it if you need to, and then here's a Nexus 6P. Now you can only tell so much through YouTube, but it's pretty much impossible to see the difference between these two at an arm's length. Especially when you hold them side by side, you would think you'd see the difference, but you kind of don't. Because the human eye can only resolve so much detail at that distance, so that's kind of the point of these high-resolution displays. You may remember my Explain video way back about Retina displays. Pretty much every smartphone has a Retina display these days, where the pixels are too small to see them from an arm's length. So next, I did an up-close test. Here's Xperia Z5 right up close, and then here is that same picture on Nexus 6P. Again, Xperia Z5 right up close, and Nexus 6P. Curiously, even from a pretty close-up distance, the difference is just barely noticeable, and that's when you're really pixel peeping at a closer than normal distance to your phone, which, hey, some people do, but I guess that's not really considered normal use. Then finally, I broke out the macro lens, which is basically a microscope, and tried it again, and now you'll really start to see some differences. So this time I'll do Nexus 6P first, and keep an eye here on the detail in the shutters on the windows and on the rooftops and all those shingles. Now this is Xperia Z5. There it is. You get much more detail, these thinner, smaller lines, smaller pixels. Here's Nexus 6P again, and I'm mainly looking here at the blades of grass up front, and here's Xperia Z5. It separates the grass much better thanks to all those pixels. And then here's another one. Check out the mountains on Nexus 6P, which, by the way, is a great display. It's one of the best out there, which is why I'm using it for the comparison. Look at the trees on the mountain up on the left, and the windows on the building. Then boom, Xperia Z5, all the windows and all the trees. Really impressive stuff. Here's the closest I could get to the panel with a macro lens. On the Nexus 6P, you can actually see the red, green, and blue subpixels here and the matrix used to make the Quad HD grid. And then here's the Xperia Z5 Premium, which honestly has a pretty unusual subpixel matrix, looking like a bit of a zigzag pattern, which you would think would hurt straight lines and moire a lot, but the subpixels are way too small for the naked eye to notice that. They're crazy small, and it took a super macro shot to really appreciate this difference. So at the end of the day, if you go out and buy this phone, will you actually be able to see the difference between it and another high-end smartphone display? No, you probably won't. Like we said, it's rendering most of the UI elements and graphics and games and apps at 1080p, and that's good because that means it's saving a little bit of battery life, a little bit of graphics power. You're not dropping any frames trying to push all those pixels with huge animations. But when it actually does click into 4K mode, it takes a second and there's a very small observable difference at a very close distance from your face. And this kind of shines light on the fact that at this level, resolution isn't everything. In fact, the bigger differences you'll see between this display and others will be in viewing angles and contrast ratios and color temperatures and accuracy and brightness. So the fact that we have a smartphone with a 4K screen is pretty awesome. It's an engineering feat, and it's something we kind of predicted a little while ago. You're gonna see 4K phones sooner or later. In probably a year or two, we're gonna be having 4K displays in our pockets, as insane as that sounds. But yeah, that being said, this is the first one, and in the way I phrased at the beginning of the video, this is a smartphone with a 4K display, but it's not really a 4K smartphone. I think we'll see the first real full-time true 4K smartphones next year and in the following year after that. But right now, this is the first one with a panel of its kind. It's awesome to look at sometimes, but I wouldn't buy it just for the screen. So there you go, bragging rights for Sony. We're just not quite there yet. And display aside, this is actually a really nice phone. Either way, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. And if you want to share it, feel free to do that too. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.